Excellent.
Om Yo Brahmanam Vidadhati Purvam Yo Vai Vedamscha Prahinoti Tasmai Tam Hadevam Atmabuddhi Prakasham Mumukshurvai Sharanamaham Prapadye Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti 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 Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha, Gurave Sarvalokanam, Bhishaje Bhavaroginam, Nidhaye Sarvavidyanam, Sri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Okay, so last class we finished with sloka number 310 and this today we'll start from 311. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Right. So from sloka 300 onwards, or even maybe a couple of slokas before that, the Acharya has been focusing on Ahankara, the nature of Ahankara, the problems that come from identifying with Ahankara, what we call samsara. So all those points are being discussed, and the Acharya is also giving us ways and means through examples how we can avoid these pitfalls and how we can weaken the ahankara, how we can distance ourselves from ahankara and all that. So I'm using the word ahankara assuming that all of you understand what exactly it is. So ahankara essentially is that false identification with the body mind intellect complex. So we have this gross body called sthula shariram, which is controlled by the subtle body, which is the sthula shariram. Sukshma shariram. And then the sukshma shariram emerges from the karana shariram, which is the causal body. So all these three put together, they are called anatma. And the most common error, or what Shankaracharya calls adhyasa, or the superimposition, is the identification and the attachment that the individual has towards the gross subtle causal body combination. So that also includes the mind intellect and all other relationships that come from the physical body. My Guruji gives this example: when a man and a woman marry, it is just two individuals who get married. Yeah, that is a primary connection. But then through that primary connection, they both acquire a whole lot of other relatives in the form of in-laws. You have father-in-law, mother-in-law, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, and cousins-in-law. So there is a whole extended family that becomes the relationship through this marriage. Like that, the primary attachment or the primary error is the attachment to the body. And through that attachment to the body, a whole lot of other attachments come which are connected to the body, like the attachment to the property, the attachment to your educational achievements, attachment to your career based achievements, everything. All that we write in our CV, or when we introduce ourselves to somebody, what all we say about ourselves, all of that is actually connected to our body. And so the primary error is the attachment or identification with the body, and through that there is a lot of secondary attachments of all the things in the world. including relationships and ahankara, mamakara. So all these things will fall under mamakara, and that is the topic for all these shlokas, and this will continue for another 10 plus shlokas. Okay, so this is a quick recap of what we have been doing so far. So we'll go to 311. Does anyone have any questions, comments before we move on?
No?
No?
Clear.
No, sir.
Okay. So then we will read 311. Dehatmana samsthita eva kami.
Dehatmana samsthita eva na kami.
Eva kami.
Eva kami.
Vilakshanah kamayita katham syat.
Vilakshanah kamayita katham syat.
Syat.
Atortha sandhana paratvam eva.
Atotha sandhana parattvameva.
Paratvev.
Bheda prasaktya
Bheda prasaktya.
Veda prasad.
bhava bandha hetuh.
Bhavabandha hetuhu.
Dehatmana samsthita eva kami vilakshana kamayita katham syat. Atortha sandhana paratvameva bheda prasaktya bhava bandha hetuh. So kami, the word kami is one who has the desires, all the worldly desires. And all the worldly desires are emanating from the body. You can think of any kind of attachment, desire. Somebody may want to watch a movie, somebody may want to eat a particular dish, somebody may want to meet a particular person because he's a friend or whatever, loved one. So all these desires, even the desire to sleep, some people may have this very compelling desire to sleep at the shortest notice. All these desires are connected to the body. Okay, so dehatmana samsthitaha. So for you to become a kami, to harbor some desire, it is possible only when you identify with the body. What is the opposite of that? Brahmatmana samsthitaha. So the opposite of dehatmana samsthitaha is Brahmatmana samsthitaha. So the jnani who understands that I am not this body, I am not this mind or intellect, but I am the consciousness which is a witness to all these things, that is Brahmatmana samsthitaha. That Brahmatmana samsthitaha, that person cannot be a kami. Okay, so if the person eats or sleeps because of bare necessity, that is okay. That is, we count that under Sharira Yatra. You have to keep the body in good shape, survive through the Prarabdha Karma. So eating for that is not considered a kamam in this case, but going after specific desires, bhoga vastu, and we use the word Vishaya Bhoga Ichha. Vishayam is the object of desire. So going after specific objects of desire is what is here kami or kamam. So that vilakshanaha, the word vilakshanaha means the opposite. That is Brahmatmana samsthitaha kamayita katham syat. How can the Brahmatmana samsthitaha person, the Brahman identified person, how can he be a desirous or desiring person? Katham syat means how can he be? That means the answer is it cannot be. So all the desires come from identification with the body, and by disidentifying with the body and by identifying with Brahman or Chaitanyam, you are able to drop or minimize or distance yourself from excessive desires. Okay, now we have to understand that in all these shlokas, we do use the word destroying the ahankara, but we have to understand that destroying completely is not possible. So there will be some kind of a remnant of ahankara which is required to carry on with life, and that is not considered bad. But anything above, anything more than the bare minimum needed is what we are talking about in terms of reducing. So vilakshanaha kamayita katham syat. So once the jnani who identifies himself with Chaitanyam, he cannot be a desirous person or a desiring person. Ataha, therefore, arthasandhana paratvameva bhava bandha hetuhu. Okay, bhava bandha hetuhu. Bhava bandha here means samsara bandha. No, samsara is all the sufferings that we go through in life. And arthasandhanam, the word artham here means going after the material desires and material pursuits. And sandhanam, the word sandhanam means being obsessed with. In fact, sandhana paratvam means you put that on the highest priority. No, all of us have a long list of priorities that we want to accomplish this, this, and this. In that list of to-dos, we have these kamam or bhogavastu pursuit as the topmost. That is typically how a rajoguna dominant person will act, or what we call in local parlance a very ambitious person. The ambitious person wishes to achieve a lot of things in life. So the priorities become fulfilling the desires, and that obsession with fulfilling the desires is what leads to the samsara. And the word bheda prasakti means, here the word bhedam actually means to, shall we say, bhedam really means difference or duality. The word bhedam is also used in the sense of duality or multiplicity. So when you have lot of desires, so you have each desire as one separate entity that you have to pursue. So that bheda prasaktya goes along with sandhana paratvam, artha sandhana paratvam. So you have a multitude of desires that you want to fulfill, and that obsession is what eventually leads to the samsara. So that is the 311 in summary. Okay. So from this shloka onwards, we will start seeing how the ahankara manifests itself. So the ahankara manifests itself in two main ways. One is to pursue desires, fulfilling desires, and the other is to pursue activities and accomplish a lot of things through activities. So those are the two main ways in which the ahankara manifests itself, and that will be discussed in detail in the following shloka. Okay, any questions, comments, or can we move on? Yeah, somebody raised the hand. Yeah,
Vasudevanji.
Yeah.
Yes. So here, when you mentioned the list of priorities and what we place on top,
Yeah.
so can you explain how to navigate this particular shloka or understanding with two aspects of life? One is with family, or what we give for the next generation, and second in terms of career, how we should handle this. See, because there are bound to be desires,
Yeah.
or even aspirations. When
Yeah.
you take career, for example, you need to do some things to ensure survival or growth or keep up with cost or competition.
Correct.
And same with family also,
Yeah.
where you would like to give something to your next generation. So is that also considered a karma, or meaning a desire, or not?
See, these are all questions which each individual has to decide for themselves. So there is no golden standard that you can apply uniformly across everybody in this world. Okay, but from
Yeah.
a strictly Vedantic point of view, all these are definitely part of the karma list. There's no doubt about it.
Okay.
Okay, they are
Okay.
karma. They are karma. But then, since you are in the grihastha, since
Hmm.
you are a family man, since you have the duties towards the family and the duties to protecting them and feeding them and all that, so there is a certain amount of ambition which one has to pursue, without which you cannot survive. Okay,
Right.
so we, let's say everybody has a certain line which they draw and say that this is the minimum that I have to definitely achieve. I cannot forego this. Okay, and
Okay.
everybody can draw that line, and that line itself can change with time. At the age of
Hmm.
25 you may have a certain line. When you are 10 years older, at 35 your line might change. It may go up or down depending on how you progress in those 10 years. But what we say, this is a long process. This is not something you can achieve in 1 week or 1 month. So it is important for this person, once you realize that all these material pursuits are not really going to take me very far, you start allocating some time every day or every week to pursue something spiritual. Okay, and depending
Hmm.
on what you do or what level you are, you could use that time to just say prayers, or read some Vedantic scriptures, or attend some classes, listen to some lectures, or whatever. Do it consistently, and this consistent exposure to spiritual activities and Vedantic teachings will create a transformation in the individual, whereby the list will start refining itself.
Hmm.
Okay, this is something you
Yes.
can, this is something you
Yeah.
can give as some kind of a standard procedure for everybody, because it will work. In some
Right.
cases it may work very fast, in some cases it may work very slowly, but as long as the person is consistently devoting some time for spiritual activities,
Hmm.
this will fructify. That is guaranteed.
Yes. Okay. I understand. Fully understand what you mean. Okay, Vasudevanji. That means, okay, other than devoting time for the Adhyatmika pursuits, it's also that we should not make any of these desires the center of our life, right? When we say career or
That
financial,
is what is meant by obsession. Okay,
yeah.
now
Mm,
when we say obsession, what it means is the desire to achieve certain things should not
yeah.
propel you to do something that violates dharma. Okay,
Okay.
you
Mm,
can pursue whatever desire you have, as long
mm,
as the methods that you employ fall within the limits set by dharma.
okay.
Don't do anything which is adharmic. And very often in the pursuit of some ambition, people break rules and break laws and break ethical limits, and then they trample upon a lot of other people to achieve their progress. That is
Right.
definitely a papa karma.
Okay.
That is definitely a papa karma. But as long as you don't violate any of the dharmic norms and work within the constraints imposed by dharma, then that's fine. Of course, if you are a karma yogi, you will focus on doing and not worry about the result. That is where the difference between karma and karma yoga comes in. I think we discussed this long back. In the
Yes.
more recent weeks, we have not touched upon karma versus karma yoga, but somewhere in the 15th or 16th lecture, we had a discussion. We had a lot of discussions on how do you distinguish between karma and karma yoga. So in karma, the person is obsessed with the outcome. Whereas in the karma yoga, the person is focused on doing it correctly, doing it within procedure, following all the dharmic rules. You focus on doing things correctly. And then whether the outcome is as desired or not, that does not affect the person emotionally. If you are successful, good, you are thankful. If you are not successful, you say, okay, that was Bhagavat Prasadam or whatever, and you move on. So, by devoting this half an hour, 1 hour, whatever time you have on a regular basis, consistent basis, you become from a karmi, you transform to karma yogi. That will be the first transformation. And once from a karmi status, you become a karma yogi, the list also will start reducing slowly. I had given this example also long back. For most people in this world, this spiritual progress or reaching God, moksham, these are all not at all present on their to-do list. Even if there are 500 items on the to-do list, this will not find even the 501st place. Okay. But then assuming at some point, even by accident, the person introduces this in the list. Let's say it becomes a 501st item in the to-do list. Once the spiritual progress and moksham and all that enters the list, what happens is gradually over a period, it starts promoting itself automatically to a higher and higher position in the list. And slowly, it brings itself to the single digit number and eventually becomes number 1. And as that happens, even the list becomes shorter. Yeah. Does it make sense?
Yeah, quite a lot.
That's a beautiful answer, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. Yes, Vasudevanji.
Does anyone else have any other follow-up questions, or can we go to 312? Okay, right.
Yeah.
So 312. Karya pravardhanat
Karya
Karya
pravardhanat
pravardhanat
bija pravriddhi
Bija
bija
pravriddhi
bija
pravriddhihi
pravrittihi
paridrishyate
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 karya nashat
karyanashat
karyanashat
bija nashah
बीजनाशः
बीजनाशः
tasmat karyam
तस्मात्
तस्मात्
कार्यं
कार्यं
nirodhayet.
निरोधयेत्.
कार्य प्रवर्धनात् बीज प्रवृद्धि परिदृश्यते कार्यनाशात् बीजनाशस् तस्मात् कार्यं निरोधयेत्. Okay, so here this shloka, the word karyam and bijam have a very specific meaning. Normally we use the word karyam in two senses. In some contexts, karyam means the duty. In some other context, karyam also means the product. Okay, and bijam normally means the seed. But in this shloka, the example is that of a tree and its roots. So the word karyam indicates the tree itself, and the word bijam indicates the roots of the tree. And so what the Acharya wants to convey here is, the larger the tree grows, the stronger its roots also become. Okay. So normally, when you plant a seed in the soil, initially it is only the root that develops. And only after the roots are sufficiently strong, the sprout comes up. And then there is a parallel growth of both the sprout and the root. And the sprout becomes a small plant, it becomes a sapling, it becomes a plant, it becomes a tree. And as the tree progresses above the soil, the roots also go deeper and wider across the soil. And that is how the tree generally grows. And I'm sure almost everybody in this group has experienced that in some form or the other. Maybe you did some gardening, maybe you watched somebody do the gardening, whatever. Okay. So the teaching, the tree and the root is just the example. What is the message? The root is the same as our ahankara or desire, and the tree is the amount of activity that we engage in. Some ambitious people have hundreds of activities that they do in a week or a month. So they're always busy, they're always running from one appointment to another. And that busyness, that busyness of their life is the tree. And that busyness is driven by their attachment and ambition, which is rooted in the ahankara. That is the root. Okay, now Acharya says, if you want to weaken the tree, weaken the root, if you weaken the tree, the above the soil portion, the root will also get weakened. And the example he takes is, let's say there is a huge tree that you want to uproot and remove. So you can't just remove the tree as it is. You have to first cut all the branches and cut all the major trunks. And then when the tree has become a stump, at that point, it becomes easy to dig it up and uproot it. Okay. So normally, what we would say is, it is the root that strengthens the tree. So by weakening the root, you weaken the tree. That is a normal logic. But in this case, Acharya comes from the other side, and he says, if you weaken the tree, you can remove the root. Similarly, in the case of the individual also, we generally say that the more ambitious a person is, the more activities he will undertake. That is a normal route. But the reverse is also true. The more activities that the person undertakes, the more the ahankara also gets reinforced. So by consciously reducing the activity field, you can reduce your ahankara. That is the message of the shloka. So, karyanashat bijanashaha. By destroying the karyam, which is the tree in the example, bijanashaha, the root can be destroyed. Similarly, by reducing the activities, the external activities, you can reduce the bijam, which is the ahankara. Tasmat, therefore, karyam nirodhayet. Karyam here, you take it as the field of activities. So reduce your commitments. Don't keep on multiplying your commitments. You keep limiting and reducing your commitments. As you reduce your commitments, number one, you will find more time for reflection and to devote to other spiritual activities. And through that process, your ahankara also gets smaller and smaller. The ambitious person, by engaging in so many activities, we have this modern theory that says, you have this dopamine effect. The more activities you perform and the more success you achieve in all these small things, it gives you a certain dopamine effect, and it makes you more euphorious. It makes you more happy, and that itself motivates you and propels you to undertake more activities. So that is also a form of nourishing the ahankara. So by reducing the activities, you probably reduce the dopamine effect and less nourishment to the ahankara, and thereby you bring the ahankara under control. So this is to show that the ahankara and the activity are mutually dependent. It is not that one will reinforce the other one also reinforces this one. Ahankara reinforces activity, activity in turn reinforces ahankara. So it's a mutually reinforcing, mutually dependent pair. And so the Acharya says, by reducing the activities, you have a better chance of bringing your ahankara under control. That is 312. And I think this is in resonance or in consonance with the idea given in the previous shloka. Dehatmana samsthitaha, Brahmatmana samsthitaha. So that same idea we have in a slightly different context. Okay. Can we move on? Any questions?
No questions.
Okay. Right. 313. Vasana vriddhitah karyam.
Vasana vriddhitah karyam.
Karya vridhya cha vasana.
Karya
Karya
vridya
vridya cha vasana.
Vardhate sarvatha pumsah.
Vardhate sarvatha pumsah.
Samsaro na nivartate.
Samsaro na nivartate.
Vasana vridhita karyam, karya vridhya cha vasana, vardhate sarvatha pumsah, samsaro na nivartate. So pretty much the same idea. Vasana is here the ahankara vasana. Now, when the ajnani has the ahankara, we use the word ahankara. So someone who has not come to Vedanta, someone who has not been taught about aham brahmasmi, that I am not this body mind, somebody who's ignorant of all these things, a normal person on the street, his ahankara, we use the word ahankara. But then after the person has undergone the Vedantic Shravanam and Mananam, and when the person is during, undergoing the Nididhyasanam process, he is technically a jnani, he will still have ahankara. So that ahankara that a jnani, that a nididhyasaka has, the Acharya uses the word ahankara vasana. So the word vasana here means ahankara vasana, and by definition, ahankara vasana is something that belongs to a jnani, not to an ajnani. So this shloka is addressed to the jnani, actually speaking. And I would consider all the people in this group to be jnanis because you have gone through Shravanam and Mananam and you are supposed to be in the Nididhyasanam process. Okay. So, Vasana Vriddhitaha Karyam. By giving nourishment to the Ahankara Vasana and by allowing it to grow or to amplify, your activities also increase, which is the exact idea that we saw in the previous two shlokas. But here the Acharya explicitly makes that statement in the shloka itself. Vriddhi means expansion, growth. Vasana vriddhi means growth of the ahankara vasana, and karyam is here practically activity, the field of activity. And karya vriddhya cha vasana, and by increasing the activities, you also increase the vasana. So they are mutually reinforcing, which is what I said 2 minutes back. Okay. So vardhate sarvatha pumsaha. And if the jnani does not pay attention to this phenomenon, and if he is careless in allowing the vasana to become big once again, vardhate means to grow. And what grows? Both ahankara and activities, they both grow. Sarvatha means in all manners, in all sorts of manners. Pumsaha means for the jnani, for the spiritual seeker. Then what happens? Samsaro na nivartate. Then that person cannot get out of samsara sufferings. So this is a word of caution for someone who has gone through Shravanam and Mananam and who is currently in the Nididhyasana process. Hey Sadhaka, be very careful, very watchful, very mindful of the ahankara vasana that is still lurking in you. If you allow it to assume a greater than life role, it will take you back to samsara, and all that learning that you did in the Sravanam and Mananam phase will go for a waste. So you have to be very mindful, be very watchful, and make sure that your ahankara remains in its place and not start dominating all over again. Yeah, that is the 313. Yeah, it is probably a summarizing of the previous two shlokas. No new message, but I think it was very clear. Yeah, can we go on to 314?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So what we'll do is, yes,
Vasudevanji,
sir.
sorry, one question related to this. Is it that, see, here it's the word of caution, I understand, but then someone who has gone in the path of Nididhyasanam, okay, some pressures of life or situations might make us go back towards action and karma and ahankara. But is it not that once we get the taste of it, we will always come back to it?
Well, there is no automatic guarantee that it will happen. Okay. So one has to be aware that this is happening, and one has to then have a plan, a conscious plan as to when the activity level has to be reduced, how it will be reduced, and when you get back to the Nididhyasanam poised mind state. You know, this in Bhagavad Gita, there is a word that is used quite often, samatvam. Samatvam, sukha dukhe same kritva labha labho jaya jayo. That is one shloka. And then samatvam yoga uchyate, it comes in the second chapter. Somewhere in that same place. Sukha dukhe same kritva
samadhiram somrutattvaya kalpate.
Samatvam yoga uchyate. I am looking for that particular shloka. Samatvam yoga uchyate. Yeah. Siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Okay, that is the 48th shloka, second line. Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Then 38th shloka was sukha dukkhe same kritva labha labho jaya jayo. So all these shlokas tell you that one has to be very balanced in the mind. Don't get carried away by success and don't get depressed by failure. Maintain a certain poise and maintain a certain balance of emotion so that you don't lose perspective. So when you go through that suddenly increased phase of activities, that is the time when you have to recollect all your Vedantic teachings and say that, okay, this is probably a crisis. I probably have to do it for a short period, maybe for 2 weeks, maybe 2 months. But at the end of those 2 weeks or 2 months, I will bring it back to normal and I will go back to Nididhyasanam. So if you have, what we call in project management, back to green plan, we always have these projects which are in, yellow or red status, and then the management asks for what's your back to green plan. So in the situation that you're talking about is also a red, a project red status, and you have to have a back to green plan when you will get back to your Nididhyasanam activities as before. If you have that in mind, then there is no problem. Right?
Got it. Okay. And the key word is guarantee. There is no guarantee that
there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee. And that is actually, given to us in so many stories. For instance, in Bhagavatam, there is the story of Jatabharata. Okay. So Jatabharata was an emperor who gave up his kingdom and went to the forest to pursue spiritual sadhana. Then somewhere along the way, he lost his track and he fell in love with a deer cub. And then, all of you know what happened in that story. Then he had to go through 2 or 3 janmas before he came back to the track.
Yeah.
Huh?
Okay.
Right. Can we move on? Next sloka?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So what we'll do is we'll read 314 and 315 together, and then we will see both together. Okay. Samsara bandha. Okay. Samsara bandha vichityai.
Samsara bandha vichityai
Vichityai
Tadvayam pradahedyatihi. Pradahedyatihi.
tadvayam pradaheti
Vasana vriddhihi.
vasana
Vasana
vriddhihi
vriddhihi
Etabhyam
etabhyam
chintaya kriyaya bahihi.
chindriyaya bahihi
Tabhyam pravardhamana sa
tabhyam pravardhamanasa
Tabhyam pravartamanasya
Sute samsmritimatmanah
sute samsmritimatmanah
samsmritimatmanah
Trayanam cha kshayopayah
trayanam cha kshayopayah
sarvavasthasu sarvada.
sarvavasu sarvada
Samsara bandha vichityai tadvayam pradahedyatihi vasana vriddhiretabhyam chintaya kriyaya bahihi tabhyam pravardhamana sa sute samsmritimatmanah trayanam cha kshayopayah sarvavasthasu sarvada. Samsara bandha vichityai. So vichitti means destruction. Vichitti is practically to cut into pieces. Vichitti. And samsara bandha is the suffering related to the worldly life. What we call punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. And in one particular janma, all the ups and downs that we go through, all that is samsara bandha. So samsara bandha vichidyai tadvayam pradaheti yatihi. Yatihi is the spiritual seeker. In this context, he is this nididhyasaka, one who is undergoing nididhyasanam. Tadvayam. Dvayam means 2 factors. What are the 2 factors that we will see next line? Samsara bandha vichityai. For the purpose of destroying samsara, the spiritual seeker burns. Burns means here literally to keep under control. He can't burn everything completely, but he keeps them under control. And the word burn also has a significance because in the Vedantic context, jnanam is very often compared to fire. The Brahma Jnanam is compared to fire. And there is one shloka, I think in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Jnanagni Dagdha Karmanam, it comes. Jnanagni Dagdha Karmanam Tamahuhu Panditam Budhaha. So there, Bhagavan himself says that Jnanam is Agni. Okay. Jnanagni Sarvakarmani Bhasmasat Kurute Tatha. In the 4th chapter.
In the 4th chapter.
4th chapter, 37th shloka. Then Jnanagni Dagdha Karmanam comes also there, I think. Jnanagni Dagdha Karmanam Tamahuhu Panditam Budhaha. 19th shloka. So in many places in Bhagavad Gita and also in the Upanishads, Jnanam is compared to Agni, fire. So here Pradahet, you can also say that the Jnani uses the Jnanam. No, the Jnani doesn't burn the samsara using the normal fire. He burns it using the Agni called Jnanam, using the teachings that he gathered in the Shravanam and Mananam phases. What does he, what does he burn? Chintaya Kriyaya. Second line, last half. Chintaya Kriyaya. Chinta means all the thought process which give rise to desires and other attachments. And Kriyaya. Kriyaya is the activities. So the chinta or the desire or the other thought processes are not manifest externally. They are all within the mind. So nobody can see what desires a person has. But when the person springs into action, that action is visible and palpable to the outer world, external world. So chinta is something that is hidden in the mind. Kriya is something that is external, visible. And these are the two factors which give rise to samsara bandha, which the jnani is trying to control and reduce. And the second line, first half says, Vasana vriddhihi etabhyam. And these two, this chinta and kriya, they give rise to Vasana vriddhi. Vasana vriddhi is ahankara vasana vriddhi. Vriddhi means growth or amplification. And so, exact idea that we discussed in the previous shlokas, by increasing the activity, you increase your ahankara. And by controlling the activity and the desire, chinta and kriya, you are able to control the samsara by, samsara is actually what? It is an effect of the chinta and kriya. So the trayanam, in the fourth line, trayanam means three. What is the three? The three is chinta, kriya, and the samsara bandha. All the three put together, now the acharya is addressing. Anyway, we'll come to the fourth line a little later. So, vasana vriddhi etabhyam chintaya kriyaya bahihi. The word bahihi means external, and that is related to kriya, because chinta does not manifest itself outside. See, the kriya, the activity is manifest and visible. Vasana vriddhi, the increase or the growth or the development of the ahankara vasana is because of the chinta and kriya. Tabhyam pravardhamana sa sute samsmritim atmanah. That is the first line of the 315. So pravardhamana means the by means of increasing. The word vardhanam means to grow, to become stronger, strengthen. So all these are the meanings of vardhanam. So tabhyam pravardhamana means by increasing the chinta and kriya, by increasing your desire-based thoughts and desire-based activities, sute samspritim atmanaha. Sute here means to nourish. The word sute also means to give birth to. But here it is not to give birth to, it is to nourish. Samspriti is samsara. Atmanaha means one's own. So by increasing activities and by increasing the desireful thoughts, you are fueling your ahankara. And trayanam cha kshayopayaha. Kshayam means to reduce, to weaken. Upayaha is a method. So kshayopayaha is the method of reducing or weakening the three. What are the three? Chinta, kriya, and samsara bandha. So the thoughts, the action, and the suffering that arises from these two, all the three can be weakened by focusing on reducing the, it is, pravardhamana, opposite of this, it to weaken. So we again have to take the lesson from the first line. samsara bandha vichityai tadvayam pradaheti yatihi. So that has to be connected to the fourth line. Sarvasu avasthasu sarvada. So this yati, this nididhyasaka has to be ever watchful, ever mindful of the ahankara not getting nourished, and balance the desire and activities and keep everything under control. So pretty much the same idea that we saw in the 312 and 313. So the Acharya is kind of repeatedly giving this message because it is not something that is going to sink into us so easily, because we have been used to this activity based, ambition based life for so long that it takes a lot of effort to de-addict ourselves. And in another context, our Guruji says, if you are a sick person and you have now been going through some treatment and recovering from sickness, there is a stage when you are not completely cured, but you are not sick also. There is some kind of a convalescent stage. And the Nididhyasanam is like that convalescent stage where you are now free from the disease, but not completely cured. So if you get back to any of the old habits, let's say you had a stomach infection and then you went through some medication and now you are now feeling okay, but the doctor says, you still have to wait for 3 or 4 more days before you can eat all that you want. So in that period, when you have to be very careful, if you end up eating something, out of desire, you will again go back to the stomach infection. The illness will come back. So Nididhyasanam is a little like that. So you have gone through the treatment called Shravanam and Mananam, and you are now going through a certain convalescence period. And if you are not mindful of the ahankara coming back, you again revert back to what you were before the Shravanam stage. So that is the example or the comparison that one has to keep in mind. Okay. Any questions? Was that clear or was it too complicated?
It was clear, yes.
Okay. Right. So can we do one more shloka? 316.
Yes.
Yeah. Sarvatra sarvatah.
Sarvatra sarvatah
Sarva brahma matra
Matra
avalokanaihi.
avalokana
Sat bhava vasana dardhyat
Sadbhava
tatrayam
Tatrayam
Trayam
layamashnute.
Layamashnute
Sarvatra sarvatah sarva brahma matravalokanaihi sadbhava vasana dardhyat tatrayam layamashnute. So Brahma matra avalokanam, that is a key word in the shloka. Brahma matra avalokanam. So the word avalokanam means the way to look at things. Avalokanam literally means to see. Avalokanam is to see. And here Brahma matra avalokanam means look at the world and perceive it as Brahman. What we saw in the Bhagavad Gita 4th chapter, Brahmarpanam Brahmahavihi Brahmagnau Brahmanahutam Brahmaiva tena gantavyam Brahma karma samadhina. There is a shloka, I think it is 24th shloka if I am right. 4th chapter, 24th shloka. Yeah. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavihi Brahmagnau Brahmanahutam Brahmaiva tena gantavyam Brahma karma samadhina. That shloka says that the jnani is able to see Brahman in everything. And in other contexts, the word used is Sarvatma Bhavam. And the word Sarvatma Bhavam is nothing but Brahmatva Bhavam. Because Atma is Brahman. Okay, so the way one should look at the world, Sarvatra means everywhere, wherever you go. Sarvataha means all the time, or in all possible manners. Yeah. Sarva Brahma Matra Avalokanaihi. Brahma Matram means to know that there is nothing other than Brahman. Matram means only. Brahma Matra Avalokanaihi means by developing that vision that there is nothing other than Brahman. All that I go through, all the experiences that I go through is nothing but Brahman and Brahman alone. That vision, what does it lead to? Bhava Vasana Dardhyate. So Dardhyam means to strengthen. What does it strengthen? Sadbhava Vasana. So that Ahankara Vasana that we talked about in the previous shlokas, that is the remnant of Ahankara. And here the Acharya talks about a different Vasana. It is the Vasana of the Brahma Jnanam, that I am none other than Brahman. There is no world other than Brahman. There is no world other than me. You know, Brahman has to be converted to first person I. So Brahman is not some third party entity sitting somewhere. Whenever you come across the word Brahman, you have to automatically make it point to you. So Sadbhava Vasana refers to that jnanam reflecting in your thought. So that Vasana has to now take over from the Ahankara Vasana. So until you came to Jnanam, there was Ahankara. During Shravanam Mananam, that Ahankara became an Ahankara Vasana. And during Nididhyasanam, that Ahankara Vasana has to be replaced by the Sadbhava Vasana. And eventually that Sadbhava Vasana will become stronger and stronger and stronger, which becomes the Sadbhava Vasana Dardhyam. And then the person becomes a Brahmanishtaha. So Brahmanishtaha is one who is unwaveringly able to maintain that poise of mind, that all my experiences are nothing but a perception of Brahman. So that is Sadbhava Vasana Dardhyam, where you become a Brahmanishtaha. Okay, so this is the process. Then Tatrayam Layam Ashnute. So the Tatrayam refers to the Trayanam of the previous shloka, which include Chinta, Kriya and Samsara Bandha. Layam Ashnute means they become reduced. They become
Yes.
very negligible. Yeah, Layam actually means to completely go away, completely dissolve. No, but as I said, it will never be completely dissolved as long as this body exists. So Layam has to be understood as a very minimal subliminal level. Whatever is necessary to carry on with life, that is Layam. So by increasing the Sadbhava Vasana, you replace or overshadow the Ahankara Vasana and travel towards becoming a Brahmanishtaha. That is the message of the 316. Okay. So all these shlokas, when you sit back and reflect on the messages, it may look like a Himalayan task. You know, a lot of you might even think at the back of your mind, okay, this is not actually meant for me, this is for somebody else. You know, it's not possible for me to practice all these things. That may be the thought process in some of you, but that's not really true. As I said, you know, as long as you hang on to this teaching, hang on to these shlokas without giving it up and persist on this process, at some point you'll start seeing that you are actually making progress in reducing the ahankara vasana and strengthening your sadbhava vasana. It will happen, but it may not happen in a hurry. It may not happen according to your time plan. So don't put a time scale to how quickly you want to accomplish this. No, that's the wrong way to do it. You just have to be at it and it will happen on its own. Okay. So I think with that, I will complete the quota for this week's session.
Thank you.
I'll stop sharing. If there are any questions, discussions, we can spend a minute or two. Else, we will close.
Questions, Vasudevanji.
Sorry.
Thank you, sir.
No
That was a
questions.
nice lecture on Ahankaram, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We all have to thank Adi Shankara. So, and my Guruji for the Vyakhyanam that he gave. So, anyway, nice. So, we'll chant the closing shlokas and finish this session. Yeah. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Sarvesham Swastirбhavatu Sarvesham Shantirbhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarvepi Sukhinas Santu Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you.
Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Namaste.